We often grow up being told that happiness will come once we get there, get the right job, find the perfect partner, earn more money, move to that dream city, buy that house. We think it's just a matter of stacking enough accomplishments, collecting enough things, and fixing all the wrong parts of our life. And then one day we'll wake up and boom, there it is, happiness. But here's the thing, the moment you make happiness conditional on something outside of yourself, you put it forever out of reach. Shaolin wisdom has this quiet, almost stubborn truth about happiness doesn't live in the next promotion, the next vacation, or the next better version of your life. It lives inside you right now, whether you're standing barefoot in the middle of a forest or stuck in traffic during a rainstorm. And I get it. Hearing that when your life feels messy or incomplete can be frustrating. You might think, well, sure, it's easy to say happiness comes from within when everything's going well. But the Shaolin approach flips that thinking entirely. It says happiness isn't a reward for when life's perfect, it's the foundation for navigating life when it's not. Think about it like this: if you're chasing something outside of you to complete you, you're always at the mercy of things you can't control. Weather changes, people leave, plans fall apart, and when all your joy depends on those things behaving exactly the way you want them to, it's like building a house on shifting sand. But if your sense of peace is rooted in something you carry everywhere, your own state of mind, suddenly the world can twist and turn and you're still standing solid. That doesn't mean pretending problems don't exist. It means you're no longer letting your happiness be held hostage by them. Shaolin practice teaches you to turn inward, not as an escape from reality, but as a way to anchor yourself so reality can't pull you apart. It's about learning to listen to the quiet voice beneath the noise of your fears, your what-ifs, and the constant demands of a world that thrives on keeping you distracted. You start by asking, what am I actually feeding my mind every day? Most of us are constantly consuming news, social media, other people's opinions, without ever noticing how it's shaping our mood, our thoughts, even our sense of self. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't deliberately choose what you're filling your inner space with, it'll fill itself with worry, comparison, and stress. The Shaolin path says, clear the space, protect it like you'd protect your own home. The irony is, when you stop looking for happiness out there, you don't end up with less, you end up seeing more. You notice the warmth of your tea in the morning, the weight of the sun on your face, the sound of laughter from another room, the presence of someone you love without needing them to act a certain way for you to appreciate them. Those moments don't just happen, they've always been there. But when your mind's constantly scanning the horizon for the next fix, you miss the treasure under your feet. And yes, it takes discipline, more discipline than you think, to stop chasing and start inhabiting your own life. Because chasing feels active. It feels like progress. Sitting with yourself, on the other hand, can feel uncomfortable at first. All the restless energy, the thoughts you've been outrunning, they come flooding in. But that's part of the training, learning to meet your own thoughts without judgment, to breathe through them, and to remember that you're not your passing feelings. I know we've been sold a different formula. Work harder, achieve more, then maybe you'll earn your joy. But if we flipped it, if we built our inner foundation first, our work, our relationships, our choices would stop coming from fear or scarcity. They'd come from fullness. And when you operate from fullness, you stop grasping so tightly. You stop putting your happiness in the hands of things that were never meant to hold it in the first place. Happiness begins within, because it's the only place you can truly access at any moment. It's not waiting on better timing or better circumstances. It's a muscle you strengthen. And when it's strong enough, the world doesn't have to hand you perfect days. for you to feel alive in them. Because when you realize happiness is something you carry, not something you chase, you stop running and you start living. One of the most overlooked truths about happiness is that it's deeply connected to the state of your mind, and the state of your mind is a direct result of your daily habits. The Shaolin approach doesn't treat happiness as an emotion that just comes and goes randomly. It treats it like a skill. And like any skill, it's shaped by what you practice day in and day out. If you practice rushing, you get better at being rushed. If you practice complaining, you get better at noticing what's wrong. And if you practice gratitude and awareness, you get better at feeling grounded and at peace, even when life isn't picture perfect. What's fascinating is how often we sabotage our own happiness without even realizing it. Not through huge, dramatic choices, but through small, repeated patterns, letting the phone dictate our mornings, saying yes when we mean no, feeding the mind with negativity because it's easier than facing silence. Over time, these habits create a mental environment that makes happiness feel like a rare visitor instead of a familiar friend. The Shaolin perspective is simple. You can't grow peace in a garden you never tend to. That's why intentional daily practices are so important. Not glamorous, not flashy, but steady. Just like training the body in martial arts, training the mind for happiness comes from consistent, disciplined repetition. A few minutes of meditation, a moment of mindful breathing before reacting, a habit of noticing one thing, just one, that you're grateful for each day. At first, it might feel small, too small to make a difference, but those moments are seeds. And like any seeds, they grow into something bigger if you keep showing up for them. The hard part, consistency. Our culture rewards urgency. It tells us move faster, get more, push harder. And yet, the Shaolin masters teach that slowness can be a superpower. Slowing down doesn't mean falling behind. It means moving with intention. When you slow down, you start to notice. You notice how certain thoughts drain you. You notice how rushing from one thing to another keeps you from actually enjoying any of them. You notice that happiness isn't hiding in some far-off destination. It's waiting in the pauses you keep skipping over. There's also a level of self-discipline here that people often misunderstand. Self-discipline isn't punishment. It's not about denying yourself joy. It's about creating the conditions where joy can naturally flourish. If you're constantly distracted, scattered, or reactive, happiness will feel like something you have to grab when you can. But if you train your mind to be calm, clear, and focused, happiness stops being this elusive prize. It becomes the natural background of your life. And yes, it's work. Mental training is no different from physical training. You don't go to the gym once and expect to be fit for life. You don't meditate for 2 days and expect to be unshakable in a storm. You show up every day, especially on the days you don't feel like it, because those are the days the training really matters. Those are the days when your mind wants to go back to its old habits, and you have to gently but firmly bring it back. What's powerful about the Shaolin way is that it doesn't separate the physical from the mental. Movement, breath, stillness, they all work together. Something as simple as paying attention to your breathing while walking can start to change how you feel. You become more aware of your body, your surroundings, your thoughts. And in that awareness, you create space. Space to respond instead of react. Space to appreciate instead of overlook. We sometimes wait for motivation to start a new habit, but motivation is unreliable. The Shaolin mindset says, start anyway. Action creates the state you want, not the other way around. You don't wait until you feel peaceful to meditate. You meditate, and peace grows from there. You don't wait until you're happy to practice gratitude. You practice gratitude, and happiness finds its way in. If we could remember this, that happiness isn't something that just shows up, but something we build, it would change how we approach each day. It would shift our focus from chasing to cultivating, from hoping to doing. And in that shift, life stops feeling like something happening to us and starts feeling like something we're actively shaping. Because the truth is, the mind you train is the life you live. One of the deepest lessons in the Shaolin approach is that life will never stop giving you challenges. We tend to think happiness will come when everything finally settles down, when there are no more fires to put out, no more problems to solve. But the reality is, life doesn't work that way. As soon as one challenge ends, another begins. And if your peace depends on the absence of problems, you'll spend your whole life waiting. The real skill, the one that creates lasting happiness, is learning to remain centered, even in the middle of the storm. This doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's not about denial or forcing yourself to be positive all the time. It's about developing the inner strength to stand firmly in yourself when circumstances are uncertain and to trust that you can meet whatever comes next. The Shaolin masters don't teach resilience as a reaction to hardship. They teach it as a way of living. When you train consistently, mind, body, and spirit, you don't just prepare for a specific obstacle, you prepare for life itself. Think about the way a tree survives a storm. It doesn't resist the wind with rigid defiance. It bends so it doesn't break. That flexibility comes from deep roots and a strong trunk. In the same way, your ability to stay grounded comes from the mental and emotional roots you've cultivated long before the storm arrived. If you only start working on your balance when the winds are already howling, you're going to get knocked over. But if you've been strengthening your roots every day through discipline, awareness, and self-care, then even when the storm comes, you can sway without losing your ground. One of the most powerful ways to build this kind of inner stability is through presence. Most of our stress doesn't come from the actual moment we're in. It comes from our mind running ahead into the future or dragging us back into the past. We replay mistakes. We rehearse disasters that haven't even happened yet. And the more we do that, the more unsettled we feel. The Shaolin way is to bring your attention fully into this moment over and over again until it becomes second nature. Because when you are fully here, problems shrink to their true size. The what if loses its grip and the right now becomes something you can actually handle. Of course, staying present in chaos takes practice. It's not a switch you flip, it's a muscle you strengthen. At first, your mind will wander 100 times in 5 minutes, and that's fine. The practice is simply noticing and then gently returning your focus to what's real in this moment. That could be your breath, your body, the sound of your surroundings. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be consistent. Over time, this awareness becomes a shield. Not one that blocks out life, but one that allows you to meet it with calm clarity instead of frantic reaction. The other piece of this is acceptance. Not passive resignation, but active acknowledgement of what is. The more you resist reality, the more you suffer. The Shaolin teaching is clear: pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. You can't always choose what happens, but you can choose how you meet it. And when you meet it with acceptance, you stop wasting energy fighting against the fact that it's here. You start using that energy to respond in ways that actually move you forward. I know this is not the easy path. It's far simpler to wish away challenges, to wait for a calmer season, to believe happiness will come later. But the truth is, the later you're waiting for never really arrives. Life is a series of seasons, each with its own beauty and its own storms. If you can learn to carry peace inside you, regardless of the weather outside, you've already unlocked a level of freedom most people spend their lives chasing. And this is where the Shaolin approach shines, because it's not about finding the perfect conditions for happiness, it's about becoming the kind of person who can create happiness under any conditions. The storms don't stop, but your relationship to them changes. They no longer define your mood, your worth, or your direction. They simply become part of the landscape, and you walk through them with steady steps. Because the real measure of peace isn't how you feel when everything is easy. It's how you show up when it isn't. One of the most overlooked truths about happiness is that it rarely blooms in isolation. We often think of it as a purely personal achievement, something we cultivate through individual achievement, something we cultivate through individual habits, mindset shifts, or spiritual practices. And yes, personal responsibility plays a huge role, but there's another dimension, one that is just as vital: the people and environments we allow into our lives. In the Shaolin way of thinking, the energy you surround yourself with either strengthens your inner peace or erodes it. It's tempting to believe we can rise above any negativity simply by being strong enough, centered enough, resilient enough. But here's the thing: the people around you leave fingerprints on your mind and heart every day. Whether you realize it or not, you absorb their tone, their attitude, their worldview. If you're constantly surrounded by those who feed conflict, complain about everything, or live in a state of constant drama, your own energy will start to mirror that. Not because you're weak, but because we're wired as humans to adapt to our environment. It's a survival mechanism, and it works both ways. The Shaolin approach teaches that you must be deliberate about the company you keep, not out of judgment or superiority, but out of respect for your own well-being. This isn't about cutting people off the moment they struggle. Compassion and connection are essential, but it is about recognizing patterns. There's a difference between supporting someone who's going through a hard time and being caught in a cycle with someone who thrives on negativity and pulls you under with them. And it's not just people, it's the spaces you inhabit and the routines you follow. If your environment is chaotic, cluttered, or overstimulating, it becomes harder for your mind to find calm. The Shaolin monasteries are intentional in every detail, from the sparseness of the rooms to the way the day is structured. It's not about austerity for its own sake. It's about creating surroundings that support focus, clarity, and peace. You don't have to live in a monastery to apply this. You can start by asking, does my space help me feel calm and grounded, or does it feed distraction and stress? Then there's the matter of energy exchange. Every relationship, whether with a person, a group, or a space, operates on a constant give and take. When the exchange is balanced, both sides feel nourished. When it's unbalanced, one side is constantly depleted. Too often, we tolerate relationships that leave us emotionally drained, convincing ourselves it's normal or that we just need to be stronger. But protecting your peace means recognizing when the cost is too high. It means setting boundaries that aren't walls but filters, allowing what's healthy to flow in and keeping out what disrupts your center. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is, who and what makes me feel lighter, clearer, more aligned, and who or what consistently leaves me tense, doubtful, or small? The answers may be uncomfortable, but they will also be liberating. Because once you see the patterns, you can start making choices that support the life you want to build. This doesn't mean surrounding yourself only with people who agree with you or make you feel good all the time. Growth often comes from being challenged. But there's a difference between challenge that strengthens you and challenge that wears you down. The first expands your capacity, the second erodes your spirit. The Shaolin principle is to seek out those who inspire discipline, kindness, and truth, not perfection, but alignment with the values you're striving to live by. And here's something else: when you take responsibility for your own energy, you become a better presence in other people's lives too. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's service. When you are centered, you can show up more fully, listen more deeply, and contribute more authentically. You stop adding to the noise and start becoming part of the calm. It's a cycle. The more you choose environments and relationships that nurture your inner stability, the more stable you become. The more stable you are, the more you can nurture others without losing yourself. Over time, This creates a ripple effect. You begin to see that happiness isn't just an inner state, it's a shared creation. And the beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require you to control other people or fix everything around you. It only requires you to be intentional about what you engage with and what you allow into your world. That's where your power lies, not in controlling the storm, but in deciding which harbors you dock your boat in. Because the truth is, you can't walk the path to peace alone, and you can't walk it in just any company. The right people and the right environments don't remove every obstacle, but they make the journey lighter, clearer, and far more possible. One of the most profound teachings in the Shaolin tradition is the understanding that happiness is not found by eliminating all difficulties from life, but by learning how to move through them with grace. We tend to think that happiness is the reward we get after life becomes easy, after all our problems disappear, after the road smooths out. But the reality is, life will never stop offering challenges. Sometimes they arrive like a sudden storm, other times they creep in slowly, almost unnoticed. If your peace depends on avoiding these storms, then your happiness will always be fragile. The Shaolin approach is built on resilience, not the kind that simply endures, gritting teeth and holding on, but the kind that transforms struggle into strength. It's the understanding that obstacles are not interruptions to your life, they are part of your life. And if you can see them not as enemies, but as teachers, they begin to work for you rather than against you. Resilience is not about being invincible or unaffected. It's not about pretending you're fine when you're not. In fact, it begins with honesty, with the courage to acknowledge your struggles without letting them define you. The first step is acceptance, not resignation, not giving up, but a clear-eyed recognition. This is where I am right now. This is what's in front of me. When you stop resisting the fact that challenges exist, you free up the energy to respond rather than react. From there, the practice is in staying rooted. Imagine a tree in a storm. The wind bends it, the rain soaks it, the sky cracks open above it, but its roots keep it grounded. Your roots are your values, your daily practices, your awareness of what matters most. In moments of difficulty, these roots are what stop you from being blown away. Without them, you're at the mercy of whatever comes. With them, you may sway, but you don't fall. And here's the paradox: the more you face challenges, the deeper those roots can grow. Avoiding discomfort may feel safe in the short term, but it keeps you shallow. It's only by leaning into the hard moments that you discover your own depth. Think about any time in your life when you felt truly proud of yourself. It probably wasn't when everything went according to plan. It was when you were tested, when you had to dig deeper than you thought you could, when you chose to rise instead of retreat. The Shaolin monks embrace discomfort on purpose, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand that resilience is built through exposure, early mornings, intense training, mental discipline. These are not just physical practices, they are rehearsals for life. If you've practiced meeting resistance on the training ground, you're better prepared to meet it in the real world. You learn that struggle is not a signal to stop, it's an invitation to grow. But resilience is also about flexibility. The strongest bamboo bends with the wind. If it tried to stay rigid, it would snap. In the same way, being unshakable doesn't mean being unyielding. Sometimes the wisest response to a challenge is not to push harder, but to adapt, to let go of the plan you thought you needed and find another way forward. This is where humility comes in. The willingness to adjust, to learn, to change course without losing your sense of self. And while resilience is an inner strength, it is also something we build in community. You don't have to carry everything alone. In fact, part of being strong is knowing when to lean on others, when to seek guidance, when to allow yourself to be supported. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a recognition that your strength is amplified when it's connected to others. Over time, this way of approaching difficulty changes your relationship with life itself. You stop waiting for the perfect season to feel at peace. You stop fearing the inevitable ups and downs. Instead, you start to trust yourself. You start to believe, not just hope, that whatever comes, you can meet it. And that trust is one of the purest forms of happiness because it frees you from the constant anxiety of wondering if you'll survive the next storm. When you realize that your peace doesn't depend on everything going right, you become free in a way that's unshakable. The world can be uncertain, but you are certain about who you are and how you will show up. And that certainty, that groundedness, is what allows happiness to take root even in the middle of the storm. One of the most overlooked aspects of happiness is that it's not something you keep hidden inside. It's something you share. The Shaolin approach teaches that inner peace is never meant to be a private treasure locked away. It's meant to be a light that illuminates the lives of those around you. When you focus solely on your own happiness, you can end up holding it too tightly, protecting it like something fragile that might break. But when you share it through kindness, service, or simply presence, it grows stronger, not weaker. Think about it. The moments of joy that have stayed with you the longest were probably not the ones you experienced alone in isolation, but the ones you shared. A laugh with a friend that still makes you smile years later. A small gesture of kindness from a stranger that reminded you people are good. Even in silence, being with someone who radiates calm can steady your own heart. This is the power of shared happiness. It amplifies itself. In the Shaolin tradition, service is not an occasional act, it's a way of life. It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. You don't need to build a school or start a foundation, though those are beautiful things to do. Service can be as simple as listening fully to someone without rushing them, offering encouragement without expecting anything in return, or showing patience in a moment when frustration would be easier. These small acts ripple outward in ways we rarely see. When you shift your mindset from "how can I be happy" to "how can I bring happiness," you unlock a different dimension of peace. It's not about self-sacrifice to the point of burnout. It's about realizing that giving and receiving are not separate. Helping someone else rise does not pull you down, it lifts you both. In fact, many people discover that their own sense of meaning deepens when they are focused on contributing to the well-being of others. But sharing your happiness doesn't mean forcing it. You can't make someone happy by pushing your positivity onto them, especially if they're not ready. True generosity respects the pace and space of others. Sometimes the most powerful gift you can offer is simply being steady when someone else is shaking, or offering quiet support without trying to fix everything. There's also a subtle but important point. You can't genuinely share happiness if you're running on empty. This is why cultivating your own inner peace first is essential. It's like filling your own cup before pouring for others. If you try to give from a place of depletion, it becomes obligation instead of generosity, and it drains you rather than nourishing you. The Shaolin way is balance. Nurture your own mind and body, and then let that strength overflow naturally to others. What's beautiful is that this exchange, this flow of giving and receiving, creates resilience in communities. Happiness becomes less about individual achievement and more about collective well-being. When you're surrounded by people who lift each other up, life's challenges feel lighter. And when you contribute to that atmosphere, you become part of something bigger than yourself. And let's be honest, life will test this. There will be moments when it's hard to extend kindness, when your patience wears thin, when giving feels like the last thing you want to do. This is when the practice matters most. Choosing to act from peace even when you don't feel it right away is not hypocrisy, it's discipline. Over time, those choices become second nature. It's also worth remembering that you may never see the full impact of the happiness you share. A word you spoke years ago may still be giving someone strength. A moment of compassion you've forgotten might be the reason someone kept going. Just because you can't measure it doesn't mean it didn't matter. This is the quiet magic of living in a way that radiates peace. It leaves a trail even when you're not aware of it. In the end, the Shaolin path to happiness is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up as the most grounded, generous version of yourself you can be again and again. And when you do that, not just for yourself, but for the people whose lives you touch, you discover that happiness isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a way of traveling, a way of breathing, a way of being that can endure through every season of life. Because happiness shared is happiness multiplied.